Hi, welcome to Coding is for You. Today we're going to do more screen scraping using Visual Studio Code instead of Visual Studio. Visual Studio Code is open source and it's multi-platform. That means it's not just Microsoft based. You can use it in Linux, Mac, Apple, whatever that is, and Windows. You can use it on Amazon Web Services servers, Linux servers, things like that. Okay, so Visual Studio Code is open source, and we're going to do a little screen scraping today. What that means is we're going to go to a website using code and fill out the form and hit submit and bring some information back. You might want to do this if you are doing some screen scraping where you want some email addresses from a website, or you want to do some searches in Google and get the information back. We're writing a bot today, and that's what this video is about. Okay, so we're going to start out with a clean slate, absolutely nothing, no files whatsoever. And I created a new folder on my desktop called SS. And the first thing we're going to do is go up here to the folders, open folder, find your empty folder and open it. Okay, now every time we save some files, it's going to go into that folder. Let's close this welcome window. Let's keep things nice and neat and clean, okay? All right, so the very first thing we need to do is make sure we have some packages installed, some extensions installed, I should say. So we're going to need this C# for Visual Studio Code, powered by OmniSharp, and I have version 1.17.1, and you will get whatever's the latest version. So you do a search up here, and you do an install, and it might need to reload or something, but we're going to need C# for Visual Studio Code for now. We're also going to need this NuGet package manager. This is going to help us get other packages easier. So not only do you have extensions, but you also have packages. Extensions are more Visual Studio Code based. They're always in Visual Studio Code, but packages are more project based. They'll go in your project and they won't be, so every time you create a new project, you'll have different packages. But every time you start Visual Studio Code, you'll have different extensions. You see the difference? So go ahead and get NuGet Package Manager over here in Visual Studio Code, and don't worry about these others right now. I don't think we need them. We're going to go down here to we're going to go to Terminal, New Terminal, Control-Shift+, tick, it says, and we're going to do a .NET New Console. And when we do that, notice that we're in our folder. I'm in my SS folder. I hit Enter. It's going to create some files for us and get us up and running with a Hello World project. So there's my folder, and it just made these for us, okay? That's a project file. There's some object, has your libraries in it, like DLLs, and then there's your program file. Okay, let's close this. Go up here to our folder in File Explorer right there, and let's look at Program. Notice it made a Hello World project for us. That's really good. Let's clean this up. We don't need namespaces. Go down here and get rid of your curly bracket. Okay, now that we're at this point, let's prove that it works. I always like to prove that it works before going on, then I don't have to worry about it later. So I'm putting a breakpoint right here on console.writeLine, hello world, and now I'm going to do a .NET build. What a build does is it compiles a program into an executable or a dynamic link library or a DLL or something. That way you can distribute it and use it. So what you're doing is in code, what you're really doing is you're using human language to write something, and when you do a build or you do a compile, it creates machine language into a file that the computer understands that can be distributed and executed. So we do a build, we compile into a DLL or an EXE, and then we can run it separately. We go from human language all the way down to binary language. That's what we're doing. So let's do a .NET build, hit enter, and let's go look at our folder, ssbin, debug, and notice 5:54 a.m. is exactly when this DLL was built. So that's what we're really building. And these are all some support configuration files, but at the end of the day, what we're really building is these files. Okay, one last thing. Let's make sure it runs and that we can debug it. So we're going to go down here to our bug symbol so we can debug. We're going to put a breakpoint right here on console, and we're going to do what you could do. There's a couple ways you could do this. We could do a .NET run. Type that into your terminal window, and notice that it says hello world right here. That means it ran because it only does one thing. We also need to try to debug it. That way we can, debugging means you can step through it line by line. So let's put a breakpoint right here. You can take these on and off, but they need to be on an executable line. We're going to run debug and see how it stops on the line. Now, or we can go to step over and notice it stepped over that line. And down here we have hello world and it's working. We can, now all we did was we proved that we could debug and we proved that we can do a build. I wanted to do that before we moved on. If you can't get that far, then we won't be able to go further than that. Let's stop this. And if you're having any trouble, it's probably because in your configuration, you have some files in here that help configure. In your launch JSON file here, you have to make sure, notice that there's two sections in here. There's 1, 2, this is the second section. Those correspond to your debugger. And notice there's 1, 2 here. These have to be set right. If you're having trouble debugging, it's probably because of this line right here. Now that's beyond the scope of this video, but go and check out why you can't debug if you can't. And this is trying to find that DLL that we just created. My project is called SS for Screen Scraper. And it's trying to run this, and it's working for me, but if it's not, you need to find out why you can't debug before we move on. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to cheat a little bit. I already have some working code that does the screen scraping for Google. And I'm going to paste it in here, and I'll give it to you. It can be in the description. I'll give you a link for it if you need it. But we're going to put the code in here and see if it needs any references. We're kind of cheating right here. Normally, you would add your references and then add your code, but let's go ahead and just add the code. It might be easier to do it this way. Now I'm going to get rid of my hello world. I'm going to add some space in here. And I'm going to paste the code. Notice the squiggly lines. That means we're missing packages. Okay? Shift tab will bring it back. Sometimes I bring it all the way back and then tab it out again. Tab. I like things to be nice and neat. Okay, so we are missing some references and packages. That's what we're going to need to get. And the way we're going to do that is we already installed NuGet Package Manager. And we're going to go up here to, we're going to type in Control-Shift-P, and there is our NuGet Package Manager. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to use that to install a package called Selenium, S-E-L-E-N-I-U-M. Hit enter, and what we're going to need is the WebDriver. I'm going to go ahead and, I clicked on it, I'm going to install the latest version out of all of these. I click on that. And then here, down here, it's telling me there's unresolved dependencies. I'm going to hit restore. And now I have that package installed, and it's somewhere probably in my project file. There, it's adding a reference, Selenium WebDriver 314. So that's what your project file is for. It keeps control of your files and your references. Okay, so we still have a problem here because Alt-Shift-F10, does that work? No. So we need to add some references to make these work, because our page, our file itself doesn't know. We're going to be doing using openqa.selenium. And that should work. Now, I'm missing another one. Okay, so I had to add these two. And notice when I did that, there are other browsers. You might want to be using Firefox or IE or Safari. I'm using Chrome because it's very common. And it needs to know where the ChromeDriver is installed. And in my case, it happens to be in this folder. So if you're having trouble with your ChromeDriver, make sure that it's installed in this folder. And let's go take a look at that. When you installed that package, it did this. It should have done this for you. Okay, so we see that it's not there. Let's build it all again and see if it all builds and it still works. So I'm going to go to the terminal. Okay, now that we're this far, let's see if it runs. I have my breakpoint. It builds. Let's just give it a run and see what happens. Go down to the debugger, hit run. And normally I would hit F10, but when I do that, it stops my screen recording program. So I have to go up here to do debug, step over. Okay, so you're going to probably find this is a problem. It's not finding the ChromeDriver, okay? So we need to put that in there somehow. Let's go ahead and add a package. We need to add a package here because it's not finding our ChromeDriver. So let's type in Selenium. Click on Add Package, Selenium, enter, and let's install the ChromeDriver 2.45 and hit Restore. Now that we did that, we're going to go ahead and do a build terminal, new terminal, .NET build. Now let's go and check and make sure that driver is sitting where I told it was sitting here. Is it really there? There it is, ChromeDriver.exe. We had to install that package to get it to work. Now I have a feeling it's going to work. So the first line is setting up the ChromeDriver. It's finding a URL. This is where you put in the site that you want, google.com. We're going to write out to the screen what it's doing, the title, which we don't even need to do, really. It just says Google. We don't really need to write it out. It's finding the search box by name, which they happen to have named it Q for some reason. I happen to think it's because they want to keep everything as little as possible so it loads faster. We're going to send cat pictures into the search box. We're going to click submit. And then we should get our cat pictures. Even though I don't like cats, let's make it dog pictures. Let's do this. Let's run it. We're going to go debug, step over. And notice it loaded a window for me. I'm going to go step over. It loaded Google that line. Step over. Step over. Guess what? It typed in dog pictures for me. Step over. Guess what? It submitted it for me, and now we have our dog pictures. Now, in a more advanced episode, we might want to search we might want to click on this button here and then go get the top 10 pictures, and then what you would do is you would get these by name, and then you would save them locally. You would save it as a file, and then you'd have all these files of dog pictures if that's what you wanted to do. That's what's cool is you can do whatever you want. Okay, so I just showed you how to get to Google, how to type in something. We can do all kinds of websites this way. Let me know if you have any trouble. This is a good way to learn Visual Studio Code, too. It's also pretty fun. If you have a website that you want to search or submit to, one way that this would be cool is if, say, you have like a library and you're checking out books. I happen to know that to log into my library website, I have to click on 4 or 5 things and then select all my books and hit renew. And it's kind of a pain. So what you could do is create a program like this that would do that for you, where you just automatically every day it would go and renew all your books, or every 3rd day or something. That way you would never have to pay fines. That's the sort of thing that you can do with this. As long as there's not a CAPTCHA there that keeps you from doing it, it would work. All right, guys, thank you for joining me. Hope you liked this video.